Please tell me why January was the longest year of my life. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be going through my January wrap up. I read quite a few books in January. Not sure how that happened, but considering that January felt like it was about 7 weeks long, that probably tracks. I read a total of 17 books last month. I DNF'd one book only, so that's pretty good. And I haven't done a monthly wrap up in quite a long time, so I wanted to make sure that I got this uploaded before it was, halfway through February. All of these books I have reviews for in my Goodreads, so feel free to go over onto my Goodreads page if you'd like to see all of them there, but let's just get right into it. So the first book that I completed in January and of 2024 is Penpal by Dathan Auerbach. I had seen this book around on social media and everyone kept saying how incredibly haunting and creepy it was. So I was like, bet I need it. It's a pretty short book. Didn't take me a long time to finish it. And in this story, we are following a man who is recounting certain things that happened to him as a child, and we are slowly, chapter by chapter, piecing everything together and how all of the things that happened to him, all of the really creepy, disturbing things that happened to him are all connected. Yeah, if there's one thing that this author does, it is the building of dread. I felt so uncomfortable in a good way, I guess. I felt very uncomfortable throughout the whole book, and you kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like you knew he was building to something, leading up to something, but you don't quite know what that is. I rated this 4 stars, I believe. I do kind of wish that the ending was just a little bit more rounded out. I wish that he had tied a few things together a little bit more neatly just for my own taste. But I still really, really liked this. If you are looking for a really creepy horror read, but also a really kind of sad read as well, I'd recommend picking this up. Next, I read Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. This comes out this month on February 13th. This was 5 stars. I absolutely loved this. You guys already know that I love Tessa Bailey, and she did not disappoint with this. This has been my favorite rom com that I've read in a very long time. In this book, we are following Josephine, who is the number one fan of a very disgruntled, very mean pro golf player named Wells Whittaker. And she goes to all of his games. She always stands on the sidelines, like out on the golf course with a sign. He ends up deciding that he just wants to give up. Like he has not been doing very well and no one likes him anyway. He's lost all of his sponsors and he's just very dejected, and he rejects her as well and kind of insults her. But then their paths cross again and she decides to help him make his way back to being one of the top players because she's also in the golf world. She's not just a fan. I absolutely loved this. This is a grumpy sunshine. I feel like I saw some people make fun of a post that Tessa put on social media because she mentioned that it is a touch her, you die trope. And people were taking, in my opinion, people were taking that way too literally. It's really more of like, touch her or mess with her and I'm going to fuck you up kind of thing. He becomes very protective of her, but very supportive of her as well. And also just as her, the things that I would do to Wells Whittaker are just concerning to feminism. I'll be honest. I want him. I want him so bad. And not just because of how he looks, like his personality and their banter in this is fucking gold. They're so funny. They're so funny together. And as I've already mentioned before, when it comes to Tessa Bailey and why I love her writing, her sense of humor is perfect for me and what I'm looking for in a rom-com. So yeah, I'm really excited for this new phase in Tessa Bailey's writing. Her next book is going to be a hockey romance. So for my hockey girlies, look out for that. I believe that's also coming out later this year. And yeah, I loved this. Oh, and the smut was fantastic, but of course, it always is. The next book I read, unfortunately, I'm not going to show because it is a part of St. Martin's Press and the boycott that's going on, but it is on my Goodreads. Again, if you want to go check it out, it'll be pretty obvious which one it is since it's the only one that I'm not mentioning today. What I will tell you is that it's a rom-com and that I've read this author before. And I really liked the first book that I read by this author. Um, this one I didn't love quite as much, and the reason for that is just because it's a second chance romance, and I feel like those are really hard to do most of the time. And I just kind of felt like they're the two main characters, how they came back together was a little bit far fetched. So it wasn't my favorite, but I still really like the author and I still plan on reading more of her work. So yeah, like I said, feel free to go to my Goodreads if you want to check it out. Next book I finished was Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Miro. This is my very first TBR jar pull of the year. This is a big boy. This is a chunker, so this took me, about a week and a half, 2 weeks to finish. In this story, it is set in the late 1800s, and we are following a few very specially gifted kids. They have these powers. Think like X-Men, but set in the late 1800s. And so these kids have these really unique abilities, unique powers, and they are being hunted by this dark force. And so they are then taken to this school to help them control their powers. But then they realize that there's a lot more to this world and to the school than meets the eye. I did like this. I think that this author is a really, really great storyteller. I liked being in this world a lot. I do think it dragged a little too much, particularly in the middle. It got to the point where I was just waiting for the action to really set in, for us to really um, understand what was happening. But I really liked the characters in this. I believe this is the start of a series. Will I read the second one whenever it comes out? Not sure, to be determined. I would like to see like the synopsis of the next book. But I really liked how the world building, and I really liked his character development. So that might be enough for me to go to book 2. I think I rated this 3.5 stars, maybe 4. Listen, I'm filming on my phone. I can't look at my Goodreads, okay? Next was another TBR jar poll, and that's Wine People by Michelle Wilgen. And this was okay. I gave this 3 stars. I was really excited for it, being a wine person myself and enjoying wine and learning about wine. And, I have if you didn't know already, I have my WSET level 1. I have my Texas Ambassadors wine certification as well. This was okay. We're following 2 women who are in the wine industry, specifically in the sales side of the wine industry. And they are they're 2 very, very different women, but they both have the same problem, which is constantly being overlooked by their male counterparts, which tracks. I think that that's pretty normal, especially in this world. It can be really hard as a woman to make yourself known and be taken seriously, right? And so I loved the places that the author took us. We were in France, we were in Germany, we were in the US, we were in multiple different spots. I loved the ode to wine that this book was, but when it comes to a story, I was really bored. So I think that, if you're a wine person, if you're in the wine industry and you want something that's fun and relatively short to read, pick this up. But I don't think, like, if you're not a wine person, I don't think that you'll take a lot of enjoyment out of this. I did like how it ended, but overall it was just kind of boring. So yeah, 3 stars. The next book I read, I don't have with me, but it was for a book club, and that's When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. I did not like this. Not a fan. It wasn't the worst book I've ever read, but I rated it 2 stars. First of all, I think we all thought this is going to be like a fantasy novel. No, it was not a fantasy novel. If anything, it was magical realism. Basically, the plot is the setting is in the 1950s when, obviously women still didn't have really all that many rights back then. The dragoning starts happening. So thousands and thousands of women all around the world start randomly turning into dragons and then flying away and disappearing. But we are following this one main character. I think her name is Alex. She and her parents have a really volatile, not good relationship. Her dad is really distant and not very involved in the family. Her mom has been suffering through illness for a while, and she feels really close to her aunt, who is clearly queer. She's clearly lesbian, but she marries and has a child because she thinks that's what she needs to do. But then she turns into a dragon and fucks off and then leaves her daughter with them. So Alex's cousin. And I think this whole book was supposed to be a metaphor for feminism and women's rights and all that. But Jesus, and I'm all for that normally, but Jesus Christ, like there's a difference between, having a metaphor woven into the book as part of the plot progression and beating you to death with it. Like by the end of it, I was like, we get it, we understand. But then, frankly, then by the end of the book, how the author decided where this plot would go, it made no sense and it became completely nonsensical. And actually, on the contrary, it felt like she was completely negating what the original purpose was. It was just a really bizarre book. It wasn't for me. All about obviously being a woman. Like I all about female power, women power, suffragettes and all that, but this was just the execution of this was not done well. It didn't make sense and it was none of the characters were likable and it was just ridiculous. So I unfortunately I think she could have done something really cool with it, but execution of it was not for me, so 2 stars. Next, I read 2 books by the same author, and that is Ask for Andrea and Run on Red, both by Noelle W. Ely. Eiley, not sure how to pronounce her last name, I apologize. She has become an auto-buy author for me. I'm still, still feel in comparison to other content creators, I still feel very new-ish to the thriller realm. Still kind of figuring out what I like. I loved both of these, especially Ask for Andrea. I rated this one 5 stars, and I rated this one 4.5 stars. So good. Noelle is so talented at getting the adrenaline pumping right from the start. The entire time it felt like I was running a marathon, like just heart pumping, not knowing what was going to happen. Truly not, because I could not. I think where I really struggle with any kind of thrillers or mysteries is being able to guess what happens at the end. So I don't feel like I get a lot of enjoyment. I could not guess for either one of these. In Ask for Andrea, we are following these 3 different women who have all been murdered by the same man, but none of them can find peace or be at rest until they help to bring him to justice, which sounds really woo woo. It sounds really weird. I thought that she did this so incredibly well. It made me angry, it made me sad, it made me hopeful, and like I said, the adrenaline was just going the entire time. In Run on Red, we are following 2 best friends who are in a car late at night. They are trying to go to a campfire party, basically in the middle of nowhere, and they start being followed and chased by this truck who then starts to run them off the road and they don't know why. And lots of stuff happens after that. Yeah, I thought I didn't quite get this 5 stars just because the ending, I had some mixed feelings about it, but I still really, really liked this book, how it was told. Yeah, I'm going to be reading much more of really anything that she writes probably in the foreseeable future. Next, listen, I don't want to talk about it. I keep telling myself that I am done reading these damn books. And then I find myself buying another one. This is number 4 in the Ice Planet Barbarian series. I have no explanation for you. I have no excuses for myself. I read the first one last year and thought, wow, that was weird and ridiculous. Not sure how I feel about that. I'm gonna read the second one. And here we are on book 4. Is it good? No. Is it weird? Yeah. Did I have a good time? I don't know. Will I read the 5th one? Probably. That's all I have to say. I don't know what else to say about it. The next book that I read, again, I don't have it, but that's because a friend of mine is borrowing it, and that is My Dark Vanessa. Holy fucking shit. Pardon my language, but 5 stars. I knew 20 pages in that was going to be 5 stars. Without a doubt, this is a hard book to read. So think Lolita. In fact, the author was inspired by Lolita. So same vibe. In this book, we are following Vanessa. It is in her perspective for the entire book. We start the book when she is in her early 30s. She is being asked to come forward by another woman who is pressing charges against a man who was her teacher at a boarding school and sexually abused her and assaulted her. The reason why they're asking for Vanessa to come forward is because it is widely known across that school that when she was 15 years old, they engaged in a sexual relationship. He was 40 at the time, 42 at the time she was 15. So it's now 17 years later, and she is being asked to come forward and speak out against him to help solidify and strengthen the case. So she's now having to be thrust back into all of these memories of what happened to her, and she's having to really come to terms with what truly happened to her versus the version of the story that she has told herself all of these years. This book is powerful. As I said, it is hard to read, so know that going into it. The author does not pull any punches. She forces you. It was a decision, a calculated decision on the author's part to write it not just in the POV of Vanessa, but in first person. She forces you to sit in it and to experience what this girl went through. And the way that the author unravels the trauma that Vanessa went through, because there are moments, I won't lie, there are moments when you just want to shake Vanessa, especially being an adult, because she keeps standing by the fact, she's like, I was not abused, this was consensual. Like, she does not understand, even as an adult, how a 15-year-old cannot consent, especially not with a man who is 3 times her age. There were multiple moments in this book that made me feel sick to my stomach, but it's done so well. And again, like I said, how the author writes the experience of trauma in the long form was brilliant. And something that blew my mind while reading it was, as Vanessa and this man start their physical relationship, even though her mind is telling her that she wants it, the subtle ways that the author wrote how her body was physically rejecting it. Brilliant. I will never stop talking about this book. It is so well done. It's heartbreaking, but it happens all the time in real life. So although this is not a real story, for some people it is, because it happened to them. So I will never stop talking about this book. 5 stars. I would give it 6 if I could. One of my new all-time favorite books ever. Just unbelievable. Next book I read was A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. I've had this book for almost a year on my shelf, and then I happened to see 2 book talkers that I really, really love. Just by coincidence, back to back, both of them had read this and both rated it 5 stars and said how amazing it was. So I was like, okay, I can take a hint. In this book, we are following Constanta, who is the first bride of Dracula. She is writing letters to him, and we are experiencing her journey from becoming vampire to the demise of Dracula, and meeting the other 2 brides along the way and their relationships. This is a dark gothic novel. I think that the author is really, really talented. I like her writing style quite a lot. I really loved the character of Constanta and how complex she was, and how she both loved and feared and sometimes hated Dracula. And it just shows you that sometimes love is not always just two-dimensional. It has a lot of sides to it. I rated this 4 stars, I think, maybe 4.5. There were just two things about it that I wished could be a little bit different. The first was the formatting of the book was in letter form because she is writing letters to Dracula. I understand that was an ode to the original Bram Stoker Dracula, since that's also in letter and journal form. Totally get it. A part of me wishes that it was more in regular narrative style, because I think that that could have allowed her to do a lot more with it. We could have seen maybe Constanza a little bit more before her life as a vampire, and then we could have just seen maybe more nuances of all the other characters. And then, secondly, at the very, very end, this isn't really a spoiler, the author decided to write in the form randomly of another one of the brides, and it felt really, like I said, it just felt really random. It's an epilogue, I grant you that, but it didn't feel like it was connected to the story, and especially since we don't get the perspective of the third bride. So I didn't quite understand why we needed that perspective at all. It just felt kind of disjointed. So that's why it didn't quite get 5 stars for me, but I still really, really liked it a lot, and I'd love to read more by her. Next book I finished was Clash of Kings by George R. R. Martin. 5 stars. Duh. Again, not sure what else to say about this. We all know this series very well, whether it's from the books itself or from the show. I read this in just 2 weeks. I've already started Storm of Swords, which I'm nervous because the Red Wedding is in that one. They are getting thicker and thicker, but the experience continues to be mind blowing. I'm really, really enjoying it. Not looking forward to getting to the end of this journey, particularly since, as we all know, he has not finished the damn series, but that's my own fault. But yeah, I mean, what else can I say? I mean, George R. R. Martin's a genius. The way that he writes his characters and the development that they are already having, dialogue, inner dialogue, battle scenes, world building, descriptions of places that we're in, how he's already a lot of foreshadowing I'm already seeing. It's brilliant. I don't know what else to say. 5 stars. I'm sure the next book will also be 5 stars, let's be honest. Next, I finally read Mixed Signals by B.K. Borison. If you watch my favorite romances of all time video, you'll know that I love this series. I've obviously already read Love Light Farms and In the Weeds. I really thought this was sweet. This is a kind of friends to lovers, fake dating. They're kind of helping each other out, figure out why they're not having any luck in the dating realm, but he's been secretly in love with her for like ever. And this is just a perfect example of if he wanted to, he would. I think I gave this 4.5 stars. The reason why I didn't get 5 quite is just because I think that sometimes the choice that Layla made were really, really annoying and really frustrating. But I still really, really like this a lot, and I cannot wait to read the fourth and final book, which is Business Casual, and I think that's coming out later this year. Next, I read The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest. This is my first nonfiction book of the year. Really short book. I had a really high hopes for this. I've heard how incredible this book is. It covers basically helping you with self sabotage. What does that even mean? Why do we do it? How do you overcome it? I thought it was okay. I really liked the beginning, but after a while, and I feel like this is the case with a lot of self help books, it got to be really, really repetitive and redundant. And I got kind of just bored by the middle of it in the second half. But I do think that this could help a lot of people. And I thought her main points were really helpful for me. So I might read this again, in a couple years or so, but it wasn't quite as impactful as I was hoping it was going to be. Next, I have a reread, and that is Percy Jackson, The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. I bought the full set of the series with like these newer covers last year, I think, and I've been wanting to do a reread, and so I figured this would be a great time to do it. I also wanted to reread the first book before watching the show, which I have since done. I've watched the show as well. I will be honest, I did not get as much enjoyment out of reading this as I did when I was much younger. as a comparison, I reread the entire Harry Potter series last year for the first time in like 10 or 12 years, and that was such a magical experience for me, no pun intended. And I really, really just loved reading those books. This one, I still really enjoyed it. It's really sweet and cute, and I love the Greek mythology in this. This is what I think was the case for a lot of us, but this is what got me interested in Greek mythology when I first read it when I was like 12. But it's still very much a middle grade book, right? And so I just, didn't quite get as much of enjoyment out of it, but still liked it a lot, had a good time. I will be reading the rest of the series this year. I have watched the show, as I said. I have mixed feelings about it, honestly. I really like how closely they followed the original book. They definitely did a good job in that. But overall, I felt kind of underwhelmed by the show, I'll be honest. But that's another conversation for another day. The next book I finished was Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. This is the first book in her new like billionaire series. Hang on. Lakefront Billionaires. I think I gave this 3.5 stars. It was fine. I thought it was cute at some parts. The steam was really great in other parts. I did like the relationship between Julian and Dahlia. But first and foremost, girl, 500 pages for a romance book, that's too long. There is a reason why contemporary romance books do not surpass 400 pages most of the time. This is too long. It started to drag. There's only so much for me, there's only so much that can happen in a contemporary romance that will continue to hold my attention. So I definitely thought this could have been shortened, tightened up by a lot. But also, I kind of felt like when you realize Julian's motives and how he feels at the end of the book, and apparently how he's always felt versus how he was thinking and what he was doing in the beginning of the book didn't quite seem to match up. So I felt like there was kind of inconsistency with character development. That being said, am I going to read the second one? Yeah, for sure. And then finally, the last book that I finished in January, this was also a TBR jar pull, 11/22/63 by Stephen King. Talk about a big book. This is a fat book. And wow, what an incredible journey this was. So in this, we follow Jake, who his pal, his friend, it shows him a portal that goes back in time to the year 1958. And it only goes back to that time. It only goes back to a very specific time and day every single time. And so he then gets convinced to go back in time to try to prevent the JFK assassination in 1963. I wasn't sure what to expect with this. This is totally outside of Stephen King's normal wheelhouse since it's sci-fi and time travel. But I had heard from so many people how incredible this was, and I'm so happy I finally got to it. This is a great book. I didn't quite give it 5 stars. I think I gave it 4 because it does drag in the middle a lot. But the way that Stephen King does time travel and his own spin on it was brilliant. I really liked it. This was also, really sad actually. And that was surprising to me. And I really, really loved the love story in this, which again, did not expect. I then, right afterwards, I watched the miniseries that came out in 2016 with James Franco. They did change some things for the purposes of the show, but I still thought it was a really good adaptation considering how much they had to work with. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. If you're a Stephen King fan, or even if you are looking to read something of Stephen King that's completely different, absolutely I recommend this. This was really, really good. And then I only had one DNF and I've already donated it. I only had one DNF for the month of January, and that was The Deal by L. Kennedy. Why is this book popular? Can you tell me? Who did it? Who said this was good? I got 30 pages in. I have never DNF'd a book so fast. And of course I picked it up because Book Talk told me that it was good. Bunch of liars. I First of all, I am coming to the very quick conclusion that college romances are just not for me. I think I'm almost 30, and I just think that reading about young people in love or young people trying to find love, and I'm not saying I'm not young. I'm still young. I'm talking about, like, eight people who are 18 to 22 years old. It just does not interest me as much. I can't relate to it. The immaturity, I just cannot, I can't, I don't enjoy it as much as I would if I were reading it when I was that age. First of all, the writing is just not very was just not very good, my personal opinion. Secondly, the two main characters, Graham and Hannah, I think that's what their names were, already insufferable. Just a few pages in, already insufferable. And I've told myself I am not going to force myself to read books that I already can't stand. Life is too short. So I was like, screw this, I'm not reading it. I didn't. So I DNF'd it. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be reading anything by Elle Kennedy. I don't foresee that I will be enjoying anything that she comes out with. Could I be persuaded otherwise? Sure. But yeah, no, this was insufferable and very bad in all forms of the word. Sorry. Ooh, okay. We did it. We're done. Yeah, I again, 17 books is a lot. That is a lot. That is not like a normal or average pace for me, and I promise I do not predict that I will keep that pace consistently throughout the year. Average monthly reading kind of comes to about 9-ish books, 9 to 10 books a month, but I'm already way ahead on my reading goal for the year. So February, I've also got several things in my personal life happening in February, so I predict that my February wrap up is going to be much shorter. But thank you so much for watching. Really, really appreciate your support, and I will see you guys in the next video.